Hello, everyone. I'm Omkar. I'm the founder CEO of Miracle.io, Germany. Today on our podcast, we have Ms. Deepa Bhushan, who is currently as the director of CP Goenka International Schools. And Ms. Deepa carries with her a deep background in education across different sectors of education, right from being a teacher, a curriculum designer, primary K-12, and as a principal as well, and today a director of a school group. So, Ms. Deepa comes with a passionate educator background, and she has a holistic a domain overview of education, right from management, curriculum implementation, and design, coaching and mentoring of school leadership, and teacher leadership and professional development as well. Ms. Deepa has also been the recipient of several awards, including the National Award for Excellence from Kanchipet Shankaracharya ji for outstanding work in the field of education. And she has recently been recognized in the list of India's top 100 great people managers and leaders published in the Forbes India magazine. She is also a member of the executive committee of MISA, which is the Members of International Schools Association, and the quality assurance cell of HJ College of Education, which is a education college, teacher training and education, B.Ed college. And she's conducted workshops on financial management of schools, as well as Engage Learning. She's been a curriculum editor for the Engage Learning magazine series. She's also been designated as the ambassador of Swiss education, and she's been an author of books and teacher manuals on financial literacy, global literacy, and digital literacy for young students. Apart from being an author and an organization leader, she's also been a speaker at several conferences and events across the country. She has spoken at various platforms such as World Education Summit, Education World, International School Awards, Dubai, the Economic Times New Age Education Symposium, the International Education and Skills Summit, Bloomberg Education Panel Discussions, Amity University Principals Conclave, and as well as a TEDx speaking session as well. So as you can see, Ms. Deepa carries a deep education background, and not just on the teacher curriculum and the on teacher training as well, but also she's been involved in special needs and counseling programs and integrated them into school systems as well, such as arts-based therapy, group therapy, sex education for youngsters, and so on. And I think at the core of all of this, it's she has always focused on keeping the child as the core focus of the educational journey. And that's exactly why she fits perfectly on the theme of our podcast today, which is female leaders who are focusing on student-centric education. So, Ms. Deepa, first of all, thank you very much for being on this podcast and taking the time to speak to us today. And I think with all of these list of accolades and awards and all of the things that you have seen in your career, I think what intrigues me is how it all started. What inspired you to pick up education as your mission?
Thank you very, very much, Omkar, for having me here today. Uh, well, the journey started actually very simply. Uh, I had never thought of getting into the field of education. Uh, I had my kids early on in life, and while I was teaching them, like my daughter was, when my daughter was born, very smart child, and I started reading about new practices and how I could teach her, what were the things that I could do. And she'd love reading, she'd love it that I used to read stories to her, so I used to read out aloud a lot of stories to her. And in that she picked up language very quickly. So then I attended a workshop of Glenn Doman's, which stated that children could read extremely early if you worked with them with that particular technique. So I actually sat down and made 1,000 cards and taught my daughter with that. And by senior KG, she was reading the newspaper, whether she could comprehend most of it or no, but she was reading. Uh, just seeing, with that experience, and by the time my son was born, and I just felt, if my kids can do it, so many other kids can. And, I'd like to pursue this pathway. And that's how I got into the field of education. And I started off at a slower pace, I'd say that. So when my children were younger, I did my ECC ed. I was teaching in preschools because I wanted to have time with them too. And they were my priority. And and then slowly, as the years passed, as they grew up, they started becoming independent. I could give more and more time uh, to my profession, to the choice of career that I had picked up. And I think somehow I was completely immersed, you know um, by seeing the impact, of the techniques that I was using within the classrooms. So I think that's been really the course start and where it took me, and then kind of just move forward. And I've had some, great opportunities, great spaces to work in, that allowed me to explore so much more than what you would look at a traditional in a traditional education system. So that's been a really great experience for me. And I think one step at a time, I just started with the academic aspect of it, to understanding what happened in a preschool classroom, to what happened in a primary classroom, to a higher or a middle school classroom, to a high school classroom. Actually, my journey has progressed like that. I understood it from the design space, the curriculum design space is where I worked, to being in a classroom, actually understanding the operational challenges, to actually becoming the principal of a school and understanding what were the other operational challenges which impacted classroom delivery finally. Because how you dealt with parents, what was the operational structure, the administration of the school, there was so much that mattered. It was not just about what you did in the classroom. For a school to run well, and then how do you scale up? Kind of in every way. So whether it was educating students, educating teachers, educating coordinators, educating principals, educating parents, how do you work with scale and still ensure quality? I think that's been a question of mine throughout my journey. How do I ensure quality, in every space of the school, whether it's the teacher delivering in the classroom, because we're so dependent. If a teacher is good, you've had a great experience. So if anyone asks me today, do you know about the school? How? And that's a question that comes to me every time. Wherever I am, somebody or the other either will ask me about a board or ask me about a school. And I think the question always comes down to the fact, I always say this: if the teacher in your classroom is good, and your child is able to get along with the teacher, and she's able to make a difference in the child's life, I think the school's great for your child that year. So how do you ensure quality is a space? But yeah, my journey started really as a very basic space, so I'd say that.
Okay. I think it all starts at home, as they say, right? Like every mission begins in your closest, nearest surroundings. And I think it's very inspiring to hear that you started off with your own children, educating them, teaching them, and seeing what has been working well for them, and then sort of that igniting a fire to do this for more such students, for more such children, so that you can sort of scale that impact, like you said, across not just your own children, but also the children of other people around and in the education space, especially. That's wonderful to hear, Ms. Deepa. And you also mentioned about going to different sectors of the education space, right? From pre-primary to primary to secondary. Uh, how, what would you say is the biggest difference in being an educator in the pre-primary space to being an educator in the secondary space? Let's say, what is the biggest mindset shift that you had to make when you moved across?
So I think rather than me, I think it's the mindset shift that is required across. Uh, Anybody and everybody thinks this, that anyone can be a preschool teacher. Yeah, it's very easy. So, in fact, if you see the pay grades, also preschool teachers are paid lesser than primary, slightly more, secondary higher, and higher secondary the most. But in fact, I say that you require a different set of skills across each section, but the competency level of each is almost the same. So, in fact, the teachers in the preschool years actually work with the foundations and the foundational skills of children and require a lot of patience, a lot of energy that is required to have fun with the kids. As you move into the higher grades, it's more about the content. So the primary is a mix of content and pedagogical approaches and, values, habits of mind. You're looking a lot of development out there within that space. You move into the secondary, it's again, the focus shifts more to content and assessments. You see that. And, higher secondary is a lot about what you're getting in the assessments because that's the career pathway that you're looking at. But my thought on this is, and this is how I've always worked, and that's how I design programs and everything. Also, the underlying core for the whole space is about building. And if you look at education as character building, is character building, and that happens throughout.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is something that often one of my biggest complaints actually about higher education is that there's not enough focus on character building, ethics, and all of these sort of quote unquote fluffy topics. I think these are so important that when people enter the workforce from higher education, I feel like the workforce has the corporate industry has to sort of teach them these things, which I think if we would have them throughout the curriculum of adult education as well, young adult education, I think that would be very, very valuable. And as you rightly put, that like throughout the pre-primary, primary, and secondary journey, essentially what is happening and what is the foundation of it is the character building aspect of it, like the core values. What is it that people what like what is the decision making compass for an individual? What should it be so that they are a positive member of society when they grow up? I think that's such an important aspect, especially in the pre-primary section. That's a very wonderful thought over there. Interesting. And so it's so far we've covered a bit about your journey from where you began, how what you went through, and the areas that you've sort of gone through as well. Tell us a bit about CP Goenka International School. What is it that makes it stand out from the rest of the schools out there? What is different? What is differently done at CP Goenka School under your leadership?
So one of the things is, the trustees have a very strong vision about doing what's right for children and what's required for the future. So, in fact, one of our taglines is personality with percentage. So Mr. and Mrs. Goenka very strongly believe in this. So our programs, everything we teach, so we across our different schools, we have different boards. We've got ICSC, IGCSC, CAIE, CBSC, is the even IB, the DP program. We have them across different schools, and but irrespective of anything, the underlying space is always, how do you ensure uh, the inherent maximum potential of a child is brought out? And it need not be in one space only. It could be across. There's so many opportunities and platforms for children to showcase their skill and talent are available within our school program. If it's academics, great. If it's sports, great. If it's performing arts space, it's also about being a good human being. And you can't sometimes give it marks, but you can appreciate those aspects, and therefore you build that further in children. So the development of personality with percentage, just as I said, character building, is a huge aspect of what we do in our schools. Yes,
What are
children.
some Sorry to interrupt. One question that pops up in my mind over there is, what are some initiatives, for example, that focus on character building and personality building, maybe for the higher secondary or secondary sort of school students?
So, one of the things that we have a program that's called the Do It Yourself program. So, of course, across our schools, we understand that our children come from slightly higher, in a sense, privileged backgrounds, is what I would say. So, don't know how to really look after themselves or have that attitude, and that's something that we need to build. So we have a program, and which starts in the early years itself, in a smaller scale, but across the years, where children have to learn to do their own things. So even if it's like folding your own clothes, how do I fold my own t-shirt, or so the kids get stuff to school, they have to learn how to do it, and then they have to go home and do it, and then during the PTM, you're talking to parents about it. Is your child doing this? Is it happening at home? We're constantly talking to them about, you lay the table, you lift it up yourself, clean up your space. So important. I mean, these are such basics, but we realize as we see more and more, young adults out there, basic courtesies, looking after yourself doesn't happen. And that's a part of our program. So we believe that when you look after your own spaces, you clean your own spaces, that helps a lot. You've seen the Japanese philosophy where children actually clean up their own classrooms and they serve, for other children. So we have this program, which is the Do It Yourself program. For the higher grades, we also have where they take on mentoring for the younger ones. Where they come in, talk to the younger ones about concepts, about things. We've also seen, so safe cyberbullying and things like that that are happening today. And we know that children would, the younger ones, and we're seeing this happening earlier and earlier, where kids um, actually by in the fifth and sixth and seventh standard are, online, don't know how to utilize this space well, don't know what it means, and really what are the pitfalls of this space. Now, when we or teachers tell them things, it's like, it's okay, but when a child who's in their school, who's elder, say a part of the student council or in the classes who they look up to, comes and speaks to them about it, because these children have already gone through those pitfalls and have kind of, I see, like, in the senior school, they've kind of understood this space and moved back quickly also. When these children come and talk about these things to the younger ones, I think the kids listen more. It's literally like peer learning. In a sense, maybe you listen to your friends more, because at this age, friends are more important. And these children, the ones in the high school who actually end up taking these sessions, also change, because they have this feeling of responsibility towards the younger ones. And when you're speaking about something or you're explaining to somebody else, I think you understand it better, and you're able to take it in further. So we have a lot of these mentoring sessions that happen across our
Mhm.
school. And we encourage our children to come forth and do these things. There's a lot of community service. So recently, in one of our schools, the children went to an old age home, where they actually prepared these songs, these old songs and all, and they performed for the elderly people. And, some of them, the elderly people started crying and, everything. And a few of them came back to school, spoke to their principal about it. And one of them said, I'm never going to do this to my parents ever. And, that's a goosebump moment, because without teaching, and I always say this, it's about the learning. And I think these experiences bring about so much learning for the children.
Indeed. I think it's learning from the real world around, right? And like learning from the people around you, and like helping the people around you also learn. I think all of it, the transmission of knowledge in the world around you, essentially, is what this is about. I think it's a very powerful account, what you mentioned about, especially children going to the old age home and sort of, giving someone an experience, but also taking some experiences with them and sort of making a decision in their minds about how they want to do things in their life. I think that's very powerful. And as you said, like a goosebump moment. for you, even though you've probably seen so many students and so many experiences, but some are so truly unique. All of them are unique, of course, but like
Yeah.
some really resonate very strongly as in us as people. That's very, very powerful. You mentioned about the older students being mentors for the younger students, especially in the age of technology, especially with cyberbullying being such a challenge today for for everyone actually, not just for younger students. Where do you see technology playing a part at CP Goenka International? How do the trustees see it? How do you see it as a director? And how are the teachers and the students sort of supported with it? And what's the overall approach towards technology?
Um, I'd say the last 2 years actually fast forwarded whatever we wanted to with technology. So we understand technology in, for, of education extremely important in that space. And if you want to engage children today, you have to come from their space, and they are the digital natives, and we aren't. We take that also as a space that we aren't the ones. Like during the pandemic, while we were taking on the learning, we had to come into online schooling really fast, and we were exploring spaces, working on things and all. And we had to equip our teams, which were our teachers across schools, to quickly pick up the skills. And not all the teachers were good with technology at that point of time. I mean, for them, technology was a PPT. I presented a PPT in class, and this is what technology is. And we had to equip them, and there were so many tools online that were available. So we had this amazing platform, that we created, where we actually got all the teachers online, and we got them to swap practices. So we saw that the younger teachers were very savvy with technology, and they brought in these amazing tools, to teach the senior teachers, and the senior teachers understood how the content could be utilized with these tools. So the cross learning that happened actually was amazing, and we were able to come online really fast and do a great job. Uh, that's a space, I think, that really pushed everyone into understanding the benefits of how we could, I'd say, utilize technology to its optimum and bring it in the classroom. As our group of schools, our vision is to ensure that our children are equipped technologically. Our classrooms are equipped technologically, but with great balance. So
Indeed, it's always about the balance between too much of anything is always dangerous, as they say,
true,
right?
which is why we have robotics, we have coding, we have
Mm,
AI. We've introduced some bit of AI also within the curriculum. We are looking at a lot of tools, a lot of teaching that we can do for the children. What is it that can happen? I mean, our senior KG does coding also, in a sense, but they're learning the skill sets of coding, not really coding, but the pre-skill
right.
sets of coding. So that's happening across our schools.
That's great. That's great. And maybe since it's a group of schools, how much autonomy does a school have? Let's say, can a school uh, try to implement something as an experiment first and then have it roll across all the other schools, or is it more, let's say, if we do something, we do it across all the schools in one go? Like, what's the typical approach towards adoption of new things?
So there are a few things that we do across schools, which are mandates, like certain things that are non-negotiables. These need to be done across our expectations on, because if you're looking at certain quality teaching to happen. But as we explore new programs, and there's so much that's happening, and the school day is only so much. You can't do everything, but you'd like to understand. So what we do is, in a year, one particular school would take on one or two programs, another would take another, and then what happens is we see the efficacy of the program. It's working well, we're getting the learning outcomes that we're looking for, and then we kind of say, okay, let's share it across the schools and see how we can work it out. So that's the way we've started now, working to ensure that our schools, I think, get the most. So you end up piloting a few programs, in one or two schools, see how they work, then take them forward.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a very good way to go forward because often the first thought process in large organizations is that, oh, we have to roll it out across whatever, you know, 20 schools, 25 schools, 100 schools. Uh, and that often can be itself a barrier, the scale of the rollout. But I think having that experimental approach, a pilot approach, like you said, start with maybe one, maybe up to three, five schools. See if it's increasing the learning outcomes. Take a reading before, take a reading after, and then see the difference. Right? It's a very scientific approach of doing things, or before and after sort of a transition. And then if that transition is favorable, then you roll it out across uh, the entire school group or all the schools that are associated. I think that it's a simple thought process, but very often many organizations struggle a bit with this sort of operational methodologies as well. Very interesting. Maybe one thing that I'd like to learn a bit more from you is today you're doing so many things at CP Goenka International, like so many things that are focusing on the holistic development of the students and the children. What is it that you'd like to see in the next 2 to 3 years? Let's say by 2025, what is it that you'd like to have at this CP Goenka International group of schools that perhaps you don't have today or you're working on or working towards?
Well, honestly, I'd like the quality of teaching learning process in the classroom, uh, you know, to be good. And when I say good, I mean uh, each child should learn. Whatever their potential is, should be able to learn to their optimum potential. And the teacher is a facilitator, and she should be able to do her work in the best possible manner. I think that's a space which is so important because we worked a lot on our programs. We've done so much work. We know, currently the kind of textbooks, the teacher resources, the kind of study material that's coming out, the kind of programs that are coming out. Whether it's financial literacy, you're looking at technological literacy. There's so much happening, that's coming through. Now, when you look at all this, at the end of the day, the program may be beautiful, but is it being delivered, um, the in the way it should be in the classroom? I think if that happens, that's where we reach 100% kind of, with what we're looking at for our children. So for the next 2 3 years, that's my short-term goal. I'd say that is to ensure that we have an across. So it shouldn't be dependent. It shouldn't be that one teacher gets it and the other doesn't. So now we're looking at our teachers as our students. How do we equip our teachers to deliver in the way they should? So that's a space that our focus is a lot on currently.
Indeed. And as you rightly said, that the teacher's role today is that of a mentor and not that of a necessarily of a subject matter expert. Of course, the teachers are expected to have a certain level of expertise in the subject. But today, knowledge and information is freely available on the internet, and you have things like ChatGPT, for example, which are able to give you information that we have gathered so far as humanity in one go, right? But what is the role of teachers today? It's that of facilitators, it's that of mentors, it's that of guides, so that these tools that are available out there can be utilized and by the students for their own benefit and for the benefit of the people around them. And for that, it requires teachers to be lifelong learners themselves, like you said, like having that hunger for learning new things as they are coming out, day by day. And today you may have something new coming out, tomorrow you may have something else, but the capability of the teacher to adapt to these things, to the changing world today, is very, very crucial, so that they can support their own students in the best way
One of
possible.
the things I always tell teachers is that you must read what children are reading. You must have I listen to music that children are listening. You must know, more about what kids are doing in that particular age group that you're dealing with, because forming connections with children is extremely important for any learning to take place.
Absolutely. That relatability is very crucial because, like you said rightly, that students, even I remember when I was in university, I did not understand, or I maybe did not want to understand what my professors were teaching me. But when my friend was teaching me the same topics, somehow I understood it better. I don't know why, what it was. And I think, like you said, that relatability is a factor that I think teachers have to go against the current a bit, even because naturally in the education sector, the service provider, let's say the teacher, is inherently in a very different age group or generation, let's say, than the consumer, which is the student. And that age group or the generation gap often can play against teachers as well. And I think teachers have to sort of swim against the current a bit to sort of bridge that gap. And I think that's very, very important what you said, that building that relatability and going out of your way to build that relatability is, I think, one of the foundational aspects of forming a good teacher student bond. And yeah, because that's the basis of positive learning outcomes as well, like a good teacher student bond as well. Very wonderful thoughts, Ms. Deepa. And with that, I'd like to ask you one final question before we conclude the podcast. What is a message that you would like to send to other school principals, directors, maybe trustees out there who are listening to this podcast in our audience?
Well, keep what's good for the child always at the core of any decision that you make, and you will not go wrong in anything. So I think that's the most important thing to do. Just keep the child and what's good for the child at the core of any decision.
Excellent. Very, very poignant thought to end our discussion today on. Thank you once again, Ms. Deepa, for the time and your thoughts. And it's inspiring to see your wonderful journey and the approach that you take towards your leadership at CP Goenka International School. With that, we will see you hopefully very, very soon. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Omkar.